In this video, I want to talk about food and a relationship with food because we have 5 more weeks until the competition, and the way that Seb talks about it is actually that the diet helped him realize that he was missing a lot of vegetables and fruits. And it's kind of counterintuitive because we're eating less and less food, but because we're eating less and less food, we need to be more intelligible, I guess, with our choices. So it does make a lot of sense that like Seb is eating more fruits and vegetables than when he's not cutting. For me, I feel like I'm also the same because I'm eating less calories and I need to think about, okay, I need to make these calories count essentially. Dieting in itself is in itself a good exercise, to kind of analyze and kind of be aware of like what you're eating. So I think that's the good side of it. That's like the good side of dieting, right? But then there's the other side, which I'm actually more fascinated by, and it's like where you have such an unhealthy relationship with food. And it's actually, the more I think about it, I was just telling Seb that I blacked out from eating too much pasta before. I've never blacked out from doing drugs, but I blacked out from eating too much. So I think that in itself,
doing the right drugs.
doing the right drugs. I mean, food is a drug too, right? Like there's so many drugs in food. So that's kind of the dark side of dieting, is that I think it pulls out a lot of people that get stage lean. They start realizing that they're eating maybe for wrong reasons. They associate weird feelings, negative feelings, positive feelings with things that maybe we should actually remain equanimous to, according to Vipassana, right? Like being objectively observing like our sensations in regards to food, when we smell food, when we see food, when we see people eating food, when we think about food. And I think being in Taiwan is also a fascinating topic too, because a lot of people think about the street food here, the night market food, and a lot of girls, right, talk about like, oh, what should we do? Let's eat more food. let's go wait in line for this food, But I mean, I'm guilty of the same thing. Like we were talking about like, oh, let's do Korean barbecue. I'm like, oh yeah, that brings back memeries.
But that's because we're cutting, so we kind of like, you start thinking more about food, the longer you get into a diet. Like.
So I guess the main point I'm trying to say here is it's duality, like two sides of the same coin, as Leone says. It's like there's the good and the bad of dieting, and I guess it's just important to have perspective and not get stuck on one side, whether it's like, dieting is great for me or dieting is terrible and it's like messing up my psychology, but realizing that both exist at the same time. And yeah, I think that's the main point, is just being aware of both. I don't know if do you have any thoughts about that, about like the good and bad of dieting?
I think, yeah, with like anything, yeah, everything has a good and bad side, and I think like you can indulge into either in both sides, again, the good and the bad, as long as you're kind of like self-aware that you're doing it. And so similarly, like even drugs and stuff, like you don't have to go like, what's the word for people who don't take drugs or alcohol or anything like that?
Oh, like straight edge.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah, it's the same with drugs, right? You don't have to go straight edge or anything like that, You can, and neither do you have to, like, when you're taking or smoking, whatever you're doing, right? You don't have to go like micro dose basically either. You can have like, as long as you're aware of like the consequences. I don't mean the negative consequences. I just mean that like the physical and the consequences. And if you know you can handle it and stuff like that, then every once in a while, why not indulge? I mean, if you have things like ayahuasca and shit, I mean that shit's like ridiculously powerful, right? Yeah. But there can be positive outcomes to it, and sometimes they can be seen as, like, I guess, an investment in yourself and a personal kind of development.
But I think this remaining 5 weeks, we're probably going to feel more of the negative sides. Because I feel like you've been very positive so far. You're like, oh, I have everything dialed in. Like you're not binging like me. But I feel like these next 5 weeks, we're probably going to like tiptoe into the darker side of things, which I think is natural as we get lower and lower body fat.
Yeah.
That's all I had to say.
Maybe I'll be able to like, I've developed a bit of a vaping habit, as in like just nicotine vaping. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I feel like I should quit, but I'm not gonna quit right now.
Nicotine is an appetite suppressant.
Oh, is it? That's what I was thinking about that as well. Yeah, it's like it might be, right? Yeah.
Thank you.
I used to have a lot of, like, first on my car, like got really shredded. Obviously, like food was a huge topic for me.